You know, spirituality gets a really, really bad rap. People these days, I mean, it's more accepted these days to be a little bit woo-woo, but today I actually interview one of my really, really good friends, actually good recent friends that I recently met. Her name is P.S. Imella. And what's really cool about her is that she was working a corporate 9 to 5. She actually loved it, right? But she wanted to leave and kind of do her own thing. And I think a lot of us, when we work in 9 to 5s, everybody wants to do it, right? And so in today's podcast, we talk about spirituality, we talk about, making that leap of faith, and we talk about really challenging ourselves. I think one of the strong suits about Ella is that, even though she's very spiritual, she's very, very, very rooted in setting concrete goals. If you guys are struggling with creating really good goals and whatnot, she teaches how to create smart goals using spirituality. I thought it was very interesting. I know that you guys will enjoy it. Guys, if you want to sign on with Ella and her coaching, tell her your boy Kevin sent you. Anyways, if you like podcasts like these, check out the rest of my Entrepreneur Next Door. I think you'll really enjoy it, guys. Anyways, we will jump into it. If you want to follow Ella, all her links are below. I will talk to you later. Let's get started with the podcast. In 3, 2, 1, whoop! All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's going on, Ella? Honestly, it's so great having you on my podcast, man. Like, I've been wanting to do this for a while because for those that are listening, Ella did something pretty major recently, right? Want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so today is the first official day of me out of my corporate job and stepping into entrepreneurship full time. So it's pretty crazy. Honestly, the last month has been a whole roller coaster of feels. And I'm just so excited to be stepping into this and really following what I call like my soul's calling and doing the thing that I know I'm meant to do on this planet. So
Yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait to get into it. One of my major goals on this podcast is really kind of dive into your origin stories and kind of like see the momentum build up into your entrepreneurial
hmm
journey, right? So I gotta ask, how did all this start? You were living a pretty comfortable corporate life, right? And being an entrepreneur is it's weird, man. A lot of people don't want to be one, and especially when they're so comfortable. And so,
Yeah.
how did it all start for you, Ella?
Yeah. So I guess for me, I've always had this kind of interesting relationship with comfort where I thought that it was the thing that I wanted, but I never felt good in it. So even before, starting my corporate job, I was originally from Vancouver. And before I went to university, I thought I was going to stay in Vancouver full time, do what everybody else is doing. But there was just something about being comfortable that just really unsettled me. So I decided to do my first huge jump in life and move to Montreal all by myself at 17. And that was my first taste of discomfort. And I really liked it. Then when I started my full-time job, it was definitely uncomfortable trying to get used to, what that job entails. And I ended up falling into severe work anxiety. So literally like panic attack, go to the hospital kind of anxiety.
Holy shit.
And every single day I was like, I just kept on measuring my self-worth to how well I was performing in my job. I didn't feel like I know enough. And it got to a point where I felt like I was really losing myself. And I was like, you know what? Like, there's got to be something more out there, right? There's got to be something more to who I am as a person and what I'm meant to do on this planet than just stressing out over a job and making my job my life. So I started going into Facebook groups. I started looking more at things online. And then I stumbled upon the whole online coaching and education industry, which I was completely amazed by because I realized that with my digital marketing background, I have a lot of skills that I could teach people, that I could help people with. So how my entrepreneurial journey started was really out of this need to have something more in my life than just my job. And so I just kind of like followed through with that. um and as I started building my side hustle, as I call it, I started really loving it, and eventually I got more and more comfortable in my job. The side hustle really helped me kind of reestablish who I am as a person,
Mm,
not tie my identity to my job. And it got to this point where I was getting comfortable now in my job, right? So I'm
yeah.
past the anxiety, I'm past like going to the hospital. And I just started like, cruising in the comfort. I'm like, it's the same thing every single day. And there was just this part of me that was like, you're meant to be doing something bigger than this. Like, if you
Mm,
stay here for the rest of your life, it was exactly how I felt when I was back in Vancouver, when I was like, I just want to be safe. I just want to stay here forever. But that kind of nudge started coming back. That was like, if you stay here forever, you are going to regret it, and you won't be serving the world in the way that you're meant to. And so I guess like it's that kind of, needed me to get uncomfortable again.
mm,
And so that's how and why I made the decision to step into entrepreneurship full time and to leave a corporate job that honestly I've come to love. I know that doesn't really happen very often. I think a lot of times people leave their jobs because they're absolutely miserable. But I got to a point where I was very comfortable in my job. I love the people that I work with. I truly enjoy what I was doing.
mm.
But I just needed to get out and just try something new and create something for myself.
Yeah. What I love about that story is like it was not only once, but there's several times in that story where you challenge yourself. The first one being, I gotta ask, this has been like, I gotta ask this, right? So you're 17 when you went from Vancouver to Montreal.
Yes.
Why Montreal? And what made you want to move to Montreal in the first place?
Honestly, that's a really great question. So I applied to McGill and I got
Yeah.
into McGill. And I guess the truth is that growing up in Vancouver,
Hmm.
I was just really, really surrounded by a lot of other Asians. There's nothing wrong with that, but there was a part of me that was like, I want to experience more diversity. I want to meet more people from different cultures and just kind of get like a different type of experience. I guess
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons.
Yeah.
And McGill also, since I applied and I got accepted, is one of
Hmm.
the top universities in Canada. So I decided to come over here. And I also like the European vibe and kind of like the hipster vibe that McGill has. It's very different than all the other cities in Canada.
Oh, gotcha. I'm kind of curious, like what's the difference in culture? I mean, like in Vancouver, you're surrounded by a lot of Asians. Montreal has more of a Euro hipster vibe. Um, what kind of differences, like I guess in the people or culture, did you kind of experience when you moved over to Montreal?
I guess like, well, I mean, I would say that my view on Vancouver is also a bit biased because I grew up and I lived most of my life in Richmond. So it's like in the suburbs.
Yeah.
So, like, back there, I felt like everything was very routine and just like very much the same things every single day.
Yeah.
Here in Montreal, I find that overall people seem more free spirited, at least like the
Mm,
people that I know. They're generally more creative, more expressive, and it's just hard to like put into words. Like, you really have to come visit to see
yeah.
for yourself like the liveliness of the city. And there's just an aspect of it that's like kind of, I guess, mixing the creativity with still like, getting things done, that you have this really cool group of people who are, in the startup world, who are creatives and doing a lot of great things. And I don't know, like, it's just it's like a really cool vibe that is hard to put into words.
Mm. Do you think moving to Montreal like really changed your mindset or anything like that? How did it affect you?
Oh my God, 100%. And I always say that if I never moved away, I would not have achieved half of the stuff that I've achieved now. Like I'm only 23 and I've done a lot already.
Yeah.
And so I think that, in moving to Montreal, like at 17 years old, I was really kind of forced to learn how to be an adult at 17. I was, like forced to like learn how to take care of myself, buy my own groceries, cook my own dinners, like manage my life, do all these things. And that just really made me independent. I've always been an independent person, but it was, when you live at home, it's like mom will cook your dinner, do your laundry and stuff. So it really made me like figure out like, how do I plan out my life? How do I want to live my day to day?
Mhm.
And I think that that has really gotten me into the mindset of
Mm,
asking myself, like, how do I want my life to be like?
mm,
And really writing that out, getting clear about that, setting those intentions, and then asking myself, what do I now have to do in order to get there? So that's something that I would say I'm really good at, is
mm,
literally creating my dream life, and really being able to be strong and resilient through a lot of like the setbacks and challenges that come up, because when you're here alone in the city, it's not like you could run back to your family and immediately feel that comfort. Like, yeah, I can give them a phone call, but a lot of the times when shit hits the fan, it's
yeah.
a matter of me like trying to figure out like, how am I going to deal with this, how I'm going to learn from it.
Mm,
And also for me, I think it's just like given me such a fresh perspective, because the other thing too is that growing up in my family, my parents had a very set kind of belief system of how they saw the world, or what they thought success looked like, or what they thought that you need to be doing or you should be doing in order to achieve a certain level of success. And I think that in moving away, not only did I get to become an adult earlier, learn how to manage, stressful situations and complications, but I really got to rewrite how I wanted to see the world. I really got to reestablish my own belief systems.
mm.
And that's how I found spirituality. That's how I found, my passion for neurolinguistic programming and the mindset work, is because now I realize that I can literally see the world in a whole new lens and not be influenced by my subconscious programming from my childhood.
Mm.
So it's honestly like I wouldn't be where I am today if I haven't moved.
I'm kind of curious because you know, you talk a lot about rewriting your dream life, setting
Hmm.
intentions and whatnot. I'm kind of curious in the before story because you said your parents had this certain idea of success, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of paint the picture for me? What was their idea of success? What did they want you to do and whatnot? I have a
Oh
guess. It's
yeah.
pretty much the same story right here, man.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, so growing up, for I can't even like for as long as I can remember,
Yeah.
I was told that there's only two paths that you can walk down in life: sciences or arts. If you go down arts, you're gonna be homeless. That's like their first belief, okay? And so growing up, like my oldest sister, she went to sciences. She became a pharmacist,
Yeah.
and she's like the prize daughter of the family. Everyone's like, oh, like we're so proud of her. She did the right thing. She's gonna be so successful.
Yeah.
And then my second sister came along, and my second sister struggled a bit more with school. So she ended up going to arts at first in university, and it was like the biggest thing. Like my parents were like, oh, like what are you going to do with your life, blah blah. And so she transitioned midway into nursing, so she became a
Oh,
nurse, and
okay,
she's
gotcha.
successful now. Now you have me, who like at a very young age, my parents could tell that I'm very different. I'm a creative. I've
Mm.
been using like a computer since I was 3 years old. I've been on the internet since I
What?
was 6. I've been building websites since I was like 10 or 11, learning how to use Photoshop by 6th grade. I was like a creative. I love creating. I love writing books. I love creating content. That was me ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, under that belief, I was like, I have to become a doctor. And that was the thing, is that, in order to get my parents' validation, it was like I had to tell them that, oh, I want to become a doctor. So I tried that for a little while. I was watching Magic School Bus, shows about like a human body and like trying to learn biology. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to become a doctor. And then I was just like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially in high school when I went to, I had biology class, and it was just like really for those 2-3 years where I realized I was like, I do not want to be learning about this. Like, this will make me miserable. And it was also during high school, in 11th grade, that I had my first business and management class. So
Wait,
I,
how old were you?
11th grade.
11th grade.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So I had my first business and management class,
Yeah.
and for the first time in my life, I was like, this stuff makes sense to me. I'm such an intuitive when it comes to marketing, when it comes to like branding and all that kind of stuff. And I told my parents after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to business school when I go to university. I'm going to go into commerce. And I will never forget the day when my mom was still like, she's like, so is commerce arts or science? I'm like, it's commerce. It's on its own, mom. She couldn't understand.
Yeah.
So that's basically how I grew up. Was like, that idea of success was like, you have to go to science. You have to be in healthcare. You have to get a government job. If you don't, then your life is over.
That's so crazy. I relate to that so much because for my story, my parents never forced me to do anything. But
Mhm.
growing up in the Asian like community and stuff, I don't know. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I felt like I had a lot of pressure to go down the science route. So I was always like
Mhm.
navigating through life, like being, hey, I'm going to be a That's weird. Most people want to be a doctor. I always want to be a pharmacist, like since day one, right? So I was like, I want to be a pharmacist. I'm not a creative person and whatnot. But what's interesting about that was that I think after I did pharmacy, I started realizing that, dude, I'm a lot more creative than I think I am. And I'm actually a lot more artsy than I think I am because, whoa, that's your cat.
Yes.
because because like, dude, it's weird because there's not too many other pharmacists who like creating content. Content, dude, I don't know. There's something about creating content, which is, I don't know if you get the same feeling, but dude, there's something about creating content which is so like, oh, so fulfilling, man. I feel like I'm like in that moment, very present, when I'm creating content, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just really interesting, kind of seeing your how you went from art to doing something like to want to become a doctor, and I was like the total opposite side as so yeah. And you know what? I do have to comment about something. I think like for a lot of creatives, marketing is like one of the best fields to combine like business and that
Yeah.
that artistic side as well. How did you come across marketing anyways?
It was through the class that I was taking in high
Okay.
school that like we had to like basically learn all the different areas of business. So we'd have like a chapter on finances, we'd have like a chapter on marketing, a chapter on like supply chain management and stuff. So that's kind of where I got like the taste of the different areas of business. And
Yeah.
for marketing, we had to do like a marketing project that was like, I can't remember, I think it was like you design your own product and you have to like make a commercial for it and like fun stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I still remember. Oh my god, my
Tell us
this is
about it.
so funny. No, it was because my team and I came up with
Yeah.
this. Like, I think for this project too, like we were given the
Mhm.
product that we had to design, like the category of the product. So
Mhm.
we were given anti-diarrhea pills. So we had to like build a commercial. We had to make our own brand of anti-diarrhea pills and build a commercial around it.
Yeah.
It was just like, that experience of not only just learning marketing from the books, but really being given like this real life kind of scenario where you have to like go there and like be creative and stuff. It was just so much fun.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's crazy. Okay, so I kind of have a good idea of like the whole your whole parent idea of success and whatnot. I'm also kind of curious. I do want to circle back to this. Earlier you said that, you know, you were trying to rewrite your previous beliefs that your parents
Yeah.
yeah, your parents had. And then when you moved to Montreal, you had this kind of like you discovered spirituality and NLP and stuff. Tell me a little bit more about how like you said rewriting your dream life. Tell me a little bit more about that. What does that look like, I guess, now? Or tell me the process of rewriting your dream life.
Yeah, so I think that honestly, my experience with this kind of first started out with the idea of setting goals.
Hmm.
So I've been obsessed with Lululemon for a huge part of my life because
Yeah.
I've been into yoga,
Yeah.
meditation, all that kind of stuff. And so I started, I think when I was 15 or 16, doing their goal setting worksheet that was like you have to outline your 10-year goals, 5-year goals, 3-year goals, 1-year goals, whatever. Write them in present tense, set a deadline. And so I started doing that exercise. And by the time I was like 18, I was mind blown because or 18, 19, I realized that a lot of the things that I've written down in the past, like, I work a summer internship in beauty or something like that. Like I had written down these very specific goals that
Mm,
had all come to life.
mm,
And that was when I realized that, hey, there's something going on here. Like this stuff isn't just all like, you dream of something, you write it down and maybe it'll happen. It's like I could literally see the physical manifestations of what I was putting down on paper.
yes.
So that's what kind of inspired me to get more into that. And, with that previous kind of idea of what a successful life looks like, once I found out there's this power to setting your goals, to writing out your vision, I
Mhm.
started asking myself, what kind of life do I want? Like, what are the things that really light me up? And how would a day in my ideal life look like? So, this is still the exercise that I do now on a daily basis. And it's crazy because I've manifested a lot of other amazing things just through this process. But instead of thinking that, my ideal life is that I get a job in healthcare, I get married, I have kids, I buy a house and I'm happily ever after, I
Yeah.
ask myself, like, what are the things that really light me up, that really bring me joy, that get me excited? And I kind of visualize myself stepping into that life through journaling. So I would just basically write out like, like this morning, I wake up, I turn to my right, and right next to me is like the man of my dreams. I would get very specific and I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, like now we get out of bed and I like open my laptop and I am running my business, blah, blah, blah. So I would like get very specific of what
Yeah.
that life looks like. And so as a result of that, like I just started seeing those different aspects of what I was writing down show up in my life. And I think that ultimately this process has just really shown me and proven to me that you get to create your reality. Like we all do. This is not like me going like, oh, I'm so special that I can do this. Like we all have the power to do that. We all have the power to tap into this potential
Yeah.
to create our lives in the way that we want it to look like, in a way that it is truly going to bring fulfillment to us and not just by someone else's standards.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the process of how I write out my dream life. And it's just so crazy how this happens.
Hey, I can't help but ask, but can you walk me through your dream life? Give us a high level. Yeah, walk us through, man. I'm kind of curious.
Okay, sure. So it's funny because now parts of it have already come through, and I keep on changing it a little bit, tweaking it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But what it looks like is that I wake up in the morning, I turn to my right, and there is the man of my dreams, and he has shown up in my life, and we've been dating for the last 6 months, so he's my
Yeah.
boyfriend now. But it's just like starting that morning off with that gratitude and just that appreciation
Mm.
for having the love of my life there, and just knowing that like I'm waking up and feeling excited for what I'm about to do. So in this dream life, like I wake up, like say good morning to my boyfriend. I go to the kitchen, make my coffee, make my breakfast. I open up my laptop and I'm there running my dream online business. I am changing the lives of thousands of people through my content, through my courses, through my coaching programs. And every single day I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. I'm feeling this inspiration to create more and to serve in a bigger way. And then
Yeah.
of course, like I start my morning off with my full morning routine, like my meditation, my Kundalini yoga, really
Yeah.
centering myself, grounding myself, asking the universe for support, journaling. And then throughout the day, like this is really where, there's no set kind of outline to it, but
Yeah.
it's really just me doing all of the things that light me up. So whether it's having client calls, whether it's going to a yoga class in the middle of the day, whether it's filming more YouTube videos,
Yeah.
creating new courses and things like that, like just really being creative and being in the flow. That's just kind of how I visualize it, and how, even for May, I was just writing out my intentions this morning, and something that came up was like, I want to be aligned and I want to feel in flow. So in flow for me is really being in the state where it's like time doesn't exist, right? I'm
Mhm.
so focused on what I am creating, on what I am doing, and just really like time flies by and I'm just there like creating lots of great stuff. So that's basically what um the day kind of roughly looks like. And at the end of the day, maybe I'll go hang out with some friends, grab dinner, and
Yeah.
then call it a day. So it's crazy because like a huge chunk of it is already how I'm living my life. So now I'm just
Yeah.
really focusing on growing my business, creating more great stuff now that I have full dedication to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Because you know what? One thing I've always been struggling with is like, you know how people are like, close your eyes, visualize. Like,
Hmm.
I listen to those like the some of the YouTube visualization exercises, but it's so hard for me to like visualize. But the way you described it, and I think something like journaling out like that ideal life and having absolute clarity, because you can tell you've put a lot of time into that. And I think that's really helpful for not only me,
Yeah.
but a lot of my listeners too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I got to ask you, there's a lot of ways to make money online, or there's a lot of different business models online. How did you stumble upon online coaching, and what made you decide to focus on that?
Yeah, so I stumbled across online coaching, I think first, honestly, through this like, I can't remember if it was like CNN or CBC or whatever video that was interviewing digital nomads in Bali. And this
Yeah.
was like 2 years ago. And I remember watching that video in the morning. I was like, what is this? Why are these people working in the sun and going surfing at lunch? I'm like, what is going on? It like blew my mind. And two of the girls who were interviewed for that clip, they're actually online educators. So they
Yeah.
teach other women how to build up like online skills, like design skills, virtual
Mm.
assistant skills, in order to create their own online businesses and work from wherever. So that was kind of like my first segue into it. So I joined these girls Facebook group, and then I started, getting suggested other Facebook groups to join. And before I knew it, like a month in, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups, and I was
Yeah.
experiencing firsthand how these types of businesses work. So the reason why I decided to kind of choose this model and go in coaching and education as well is because I love teaching.
Yeah.
I love teaching, and I just love like empowering people to be better. Like even before I came across this, like I had started my Instagram account that was all about like, healthy eating, working out, and really this idea of inspiring people to be better. That's always something that I don't know why or how, but it's been a part of me for as long as I can remember. And even as a kid, it's
Yeah.
really funny. When my friends would come over to play, I would sit them down in chairs, pull out a whiteboard, and like play school. And I'm like, I'm gonna teach you guys stuff today. And I just like these poor kids, like, we're here for a party. Like, what are you doing?
Uh,
Yeah. So it was just like the coolest thing for me, that was like, wait a minute, like I can take what I know, what I've
mm,
learned, what I've experienced,
yeah.
and teach people, which I already love doing, and make money from it. I was like, whoa, like sign me up. And
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's really great about this, because I've also like looked into drop shipping and starting a product-based business in the past, but for me it was just like too much logistics involved.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's hard to like, you got to like get your materials, you got to create your product, you got to manage like your profit margins for this and that. And there's like a lot of other pieces involved. And for me, it was like, I never found any physical product that I was really passionate
Yeah.
enough about to really focus on that. And the reason why I really love online education and coaching is that it's so scalable, right? Through
Yeah.
courses, through digital products, you can create something for once. Your production costs, your incremental production cost is zero. You just copy and paste it. You just share the
Yeah.
same link over and over again,
Yeah.
right? And so it was just like so crazy that, like, first of all, this checked off my box of like being able to teach and do something that I love. And second of all, like, there's like little cost involved in starting something like this, right? So in the beginning, I just had to pay for like website hosting and domain, had to pay for like Zoom to do my client calls, I had to pay for like Acuity, like a scheduling system. But aside from that, like, I don't have to invest a lot of money to
Yeah.
build a prototype, to like create a batch of something. So that
Yeah.
was how I decided.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I actually really align with a lot of the things like your criteria, right? One of the things that you said was that you love being able to teach. And the second thing was that there's a little startup cost, especially these days online.
Yeah.
So many freaking opportunities. Like, dude, Ella, if we were born like 50 years ago, we could have it would have been so much harder to do this sort of stuff, you
I
know?
know.
So much harder to do that stuff. So hey, I'm actually really curious about something. Tell me about your journey of getting your first client. And
Ooh.
yeah, first
Yeah.
client.
So the journey of getting my first client is actually really interesting how that even happened. So I got my first coaching client through Instagram.
Yeah.
And we had started a conversation because I was meditating with Headspace, and I was sharing a screenshot of like how many Headspace has this thing that's like, oh, you have meditated like 7,000 minutes or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. So I took a screenshot and I shared it. And
Yeah.
this girl had replied to my story. She was following me. I didn't know her. She was like, oh, like, this is so cool. What app is it? And I told her. And then like a few days later, she messaged me. She's like, hey, like, I'm actually looking for a coach. And I was wondering if I could like get on a call with you to like understand what coaching with you would be like. And I was like, what? Yeah, like what? And then so we got on a call, and this is like, mind you, like my first sales call, no idea what I was doing, but I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, I'm just gonna be myself. I'm gonna like share with her how I can help her, whatever. And I closed like the sale on that call. And the next day she's like, okay, I'm gonna pay. And I was like, what? Like, what's going on? This is through like our only interaction was this one Instagram DM where I told her what app I'm using for
Yeah.
meditation. And so down the road, like, you know, we had talked about it, and I was like, I'm really curious, like, what made you decide to like reach out and want to work with me? And she told me that, like, you know, I've been following your content for a very long time, and like I see you through your stories, through your posts, and she's like, I just felt like I knew you.
Yeah.
And like when we jumped on the call, it was like, yeah, it just like made sense. It just felt right.
Yeah.
And so it was like that. Like that's how I got my first client. And I think that just really shows like the power of being authentic and being who you are in social media. And that's something that I advocate for a lot. Even for me, it's been like a whole journey of trying to understand what that looks like, because even as I signed that first client, I was still in the middle of like a bit of an identity crisis where I was really focused on just like the online marketing, the digital marketing, growing your Instagram, helping you with your content and stuff, which I still help clients with now. But like I knew that I wasn't being fully myself on Instagram. I was still following rules of like, oh, I should talk about like, you know, like smoothie bowls, or I should talk about Instagram. And so I think there's just like this power of learning how to unfilter yourself and allowing the full you to come across. For me now, it's like just showing my spiritual AF side, as I call it. And as a
Yeah.
result of that, because like as you're sharing that content, you know, as you're just being yourself on your Instagram stories, that's what makes you so magnetic to the people who do resonate with your message. Like this girl who decided to work with me after one Instagram DM. So yeah, that's the story.
Dude, that is so crazy. Were you kind of before the meeting and stuff, were you kind of nervous and whatnot, or did you like prepare frantically, like what am I gonna charge? All this sort of stuff. What was running through your head
Yeah.
before the meeting?
Well, I had already decided on like my pricing on my website. So I had made it very clear. I was like, you know, like here's the website, like the web page, like look over the details, and like the investment is on there, because for me, like I just don't like wasting my own time and the other person's time.
Yeah.
If it's like I don't tell them the price and then they go on, they're like, oh, I can't afford that, or that's not what I expected. So I made it very clear for her. To be honest, I didn't actually prep a lot. because I didn't even know what to prep for. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna tell her what it's about.
Yeah.
And I remember that morning I actually went to get like chicken waffles for brunch with my friend before the call, and it was just like chill. So I didn't over prepare, and like there was just like a part of me that was like, you know what, like this is meant to be, then it'll work out. If
Yeah.
it's not, then it's just not meant to be. So
Yeah. That's awesome. And so that was your first client. Tell me about the transition into making the decision or setting the intention that, you know what, I'm going to leave my corporate job. Because one interesting thing that you said earlier when in the beginning, right, was that you actually loved your corporate job.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about like when did that kind of switch happen for you?
Oh yeah, I remember that moment very
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah.
So uh, so November of 2018, I went to see Tony Robbins. And funny because before I went, my team was already like, oh shit, like she's gonna go see Tony Robbins. She's probably gonna leave us after that. And I was like, no, don't worry. And so I went to see Tony Robbins in New Jersey. And on the second day of Unleash the Power Within, he had made us do this limiting beliefs exercise where he's like, okay, like, like on the first day, he made us decide on what we want to kind of create in our lives. And I decided that I want to become an international like motivational speaker. I want to be doing coaching like worldwide. I want to be creating this massive impact, blah, blah, blah. And on the second day, he made us identify what are those limiting beliefs that are holding us back from actually doing the thing that we had decided to do. And the biggest one for me is like, I'm not good enough. And I think that is honestly universal across everyone, right? Like, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough, all that kind of stuff. And he made us do this really cool exercise. It's an NLP exercise, and it's one that I use with my clients now. And I've talked about it on my podcast as well. But it's this exercise called helping you surpass your pain threshold. Okay, so he made like 12,000 of us in this huge stadium start to visualize what our lives would look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years from now, if we allowed ourselves to keep on being held down by that limiting belief, right? So he would be like, he's like, like shouting into the mic, like, imagine like 20 years from now, you're still stuck in your bullshit because you were too afraid. And he's just like, and everyone's like screaming and crying. And I was there crying too, imagining what life would look like 20 years from now if I was still in my corporate job, still playing it safe because of this limiting belief and this fear that I'm not good enough to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that was this exercise that really got imprinted in my subconscious. And after that, like the thought of I need to leave, I need to give this a shot, just like didn't leave me. And because I'm very spiritual, and December as well, I also asked the universe for a sign one day. I was listening to another podcast episode of this girl who was talking about how she decided to pursue entrepreneurship and how she asked the universe for a sign for 11/11. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So I did that. And it was the craziest thing because that day at lunchtime, I randomly got this email from like a crystal shop that was like, oh, happy holidays, whatever. And I opened it and I skimmed through it, and they were like, oh yeah, we're running a holiday sale. Use this coupon code Xmas1111. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I asked for, And it's not even the kind of stuff where I could be like waiting for 11:11 a.m. and look at my phone and be like, oh, there's my sign, like it literally, I had like, there was no way that I could have like managed to find that coupon code unless I was like divinely guided to there.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was like the Tony Robbins experience, and then also backed with, the sign from the universe and just this like knowing inside me. I think like since I've gotten so connected to soul, like I meditate on a daily basis, I journal, and I just like have this like connection within to my inner guidance system. There's just this feeling really inside me that, cannot really be put into words, but it's really this feeling and this knowing that this is what I'm meant to be doing. So
yeah, I love that. I love that whole story. Like knowing that whole sounds like it's kind of like that trust within and the trust
Mhm.
within the universe and whatnot. And that led you to kind of have the belief to kind of create the life that you really envisioned, right?
Mhm.
I really want to get into this because I know it's a huge part of you as well, but spirituality sounds like um I would love to kind of hear your journey about spirituality because it seems like it had a huge impact on your life, right? Your even it encompasses your like whole business model and all that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. I'm kind of curious. Can you tell me about your story about discovering spirituality and your journey with spirituality as well?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, since I was 14, 15, I started doing yoga. So back then, like, I kind of got my first taste of like, the yoga teacher going like, oh, be present.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, calm down, relax, and like listen within. And back then, that shit made no sense to me. I was like, what is this woman talking about? Just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so after that, like, and moving away, I've just been through a lot of, I would say, rock bottoms
Mhm.
because of the way that I was brought up. I was so used to always looking for external validation for my sense of self-worth. So how well I was doing in school, whether or not like a guy liked me back,
Yeah.
or just like how many friends I had and like how many likes was I getting on Instagram. Like I was so focused on all these external ways of measuring my self-worth, and so that got me through multiple rock bottoms, because when you depend your self-worth outside of you, just like my job too, that was another thing. You are basically handing your power away. You're handing your power away to something that you cannot control, right? And also your self-worth cannot be defined by external things. Like you're worth so much more than anything on the outside can ever tell you. And
Yeah.
so in going through a lot of these rock bottoms where I basically fell through like quite a few like depression holes, I was in a relationship and then I got cheated on, so that really got me down a very bad dark hole
Yeah.
where I started like having like an alcohol addiction. I couldn't stop drinking wine every single day. It was like to numb the pain. I didn't want to like deal with real life. Like going to work, I would be fine, but then like right after work, I would have to like just drink and then just like sleep until I wake up and just go to work again.
Yeah.
I started like just like dating like three people at the same time. It was just like a very messy time in my life. And then
Yeah.
after I kind of got a bit better was when the work anxiety kicked in, right? So kind of
Mm.
like I went through a lot of these moments where I didn't know who I was, where I felt so lost, so alone, and so dark. And it's really in these rock bottoms where you ask like, like there's gotta be a better way out there to live my life, right? And that's kind of what I set out. The intention was like, like I want to live my life differently. Like, can I please get some help and support? Especially after I ended up in the hospital a second time, with the panic attack. I was sitting there in meditation one day, which for the longest time I was avoiding for a long time because I just couldn't even sit down alone with my own thoughts because it was so scary. I was like, I'm so fucked up. Like, oh my God. And so it was really in that moment where I will never forget, like this piece of guidance kind of came through that was like, in due time, all will be well. And once again, it was like this feeling, this knowing that there was something bigger out there that was like reassuring me that, things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I've always like, been into Gabby Bernstein. She's like a New York Times best-selling author in spirituality and stuff like that, and self-development. And I had learned about her because of Lululemon, because Lululemon has her as an ambassador. And
Mhm.
so I started buying all of her books after my panic attack episode. I started reading her books, and that was also the summer that I kind of stepped into like the whole online coaching world and knowing that all exists. So
Mm.
that was really kind of like the big catalyst for my
Yeah.
spiritual growth. Like before then, I had like a taste of like Buddhism. I was reading like Buddhist books. I thought I was going to be Buddhist, and like I was just like really curious to learn like, how can I feel better? How can I
Yeah.
live a better life? How can I look at things differently? Because obviously the current way that I have of perceiving the world is not serving me. So that's kind of like my my journey with spirituality, and day by day I always say like I'm just getting more and more spiritual. Like I
Yeah.
started with just going with like meditation and like thinking better thoughts,
Yeah.
to now things like quantum physics and how that like relates to manifestation, and like just going into the whole concept of consciousness, and like,
Yeah.
you know, like we are all gods and like all this crazy stuff. But it's I think the cool thing about spirituality is like sometimes for a lot of people it can be this like very overwhelming or like the scary concept where they think like, oh, if I'm spiritual, does that mean like I have to like believe in a certain religion, but I'm not religious. But I think that the important thing to understand about spirituality is that it just comes down with you having a relationship with yourself at a much deeper level. Spirituality is about connecting within and understanding that whatever you want and desire in your life, you already have within you. All of the answers that you're looking for outside of yourself, all of the validation, the sense of wholeness that you're looking for outside of you is already within you.
Yeah.
And it's really just like your job to take the time to make the commitment to tap into that, because you can access all that power inside you. So it's not about believing in something greater than you necessarily, although, you know, like a lot of people who are spiritual like myself do believe in the higher power, do believe in the universe or something bigger than us, like source, if you will, connecting us. But ultimately it comes down to just like having that relationship with yourself at a deeper level, understanding how to be present in the moment now, because this is the only moment that there ever is, right? There's no past, there's no future, because you all experienced it during the moment now. And it's about like understanding yourself at that deeper level so that you can have that awareness to make better choices and to just live a life that's more fulfilling and aligned for you. Like that's what spirituality comes down to. And yeah, as you can see, I get like very into that.
Of
So
course. I love it. One unique thing about you, Ella, is that, you know, you're very spiritual, right? But I talk to a lot of spiritual people. I have a lot of spiritual friends.
Mhm.
I'm definitely not as spiritual as you and some other people, right? But I'm always just like really curious about it. And I talk to a lot of people, and one really great thing about you is that you're very spiritual, but yet you're very grounded and you're very clear about your goals too.
Mhm.
Sometimes like when I talk to, I don't know, talk to people, they're so unclear about what they want in life and all that sort of stuff, like in the spiritual realm. But you have a good balance of both, and I really like that about you. Um, hey, let's talk about this really quick. So you made the jump recently out of your corporate job, and I'm just kind of curious, how are you feeling these days? What's going through your head right now?
I mean, right now it's still day one,
Yeah.
so I'm feeling really excited. I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna go create some content. I'm gonna like plan some things out, like script out my next YouTube video, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I have been told that, you know, the first few days is kind of like the honeymoon phase where you still feel like you're probably on vacation.
Yeah.
And then after a while, it might really start to sink in like, wait, this is like your life now. So right now, I'm honestly feeling very excited of like all the time that I have and like what I can be doing with that time. But I know like because in the last few weeks, what has been coming up is a lot of the fear, a lot of like, what if this doesn't work out?
Mhm.
What if I fail? Whatever. But it's honestly really nice because now my parents are honestly so supportive of me because they've kind of realized they're like, you have ventured out in your own path, but for the last like 3-4 years, honestly, you've been so successful, you know, in the business field, and we completely trust that you know what you're doing. And at the end of the day, you're so young that even if you screw up, you don't like this, you want to go back, you always have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm kind of like really stepping into this feeling of full trust.
Yeah.
And for me, this is really big because trust is something that I've struggled with a lot in my life. So as of right now, today, I'm honestly feeling trusting. I'm feeling supported. I'm feeling inspired to do and to create. I
Yeah.
know that there will be moments coming up that will test this trust, that will try to throw me off balance. But it's just really the whole part of life, right? You always have your ebbs and your flows, you have your highs and your lows, and it's just the whole part of being human.
Yeah.
But I, you know, for me, I think the biggest thing is to like focus on that vision. And that's why I always say having a vision and understanding your why is so important. When you have a clear sense of what your purpose is, when you have that deep connection to what you're doing and you understand the greater impact of what it is that you're doing, it doesn't matter even when the challenges come up and you get frustrated, you feel shitty for a few days because it's all normal, but ultimately you'll be able to get back up on your feet a lot faster because you know what you stand for. You know the value of what it is that you're doing. So I'm kind of like in that mood right now, which is why, like, especially in the beginning of the month, like I really like to be very clear about what are my intentions, what is my vision for this month, and just like staying in alignment with that.
Yeah. You know, I really love that. You know, that's something I've been kind of having an ebb and flow with, like having full trust within myself because I've been kind of out of the corporate worlds, like pharmacy corporate worlds for the last year. And what it's already, I can't believe it. It's already May, man. Like a year and a half almost.
Mm-hmm.
And having that full trust, man, within myself, like and believing that I can just like all the like you said, all the answers are within, man. It's been such a
Yeah.
journey, man. And there's so many times where I've like lost my why. Actually, you know what's pretty interesting? Right now, right now I'm actually going through that and I'm like having to like rediscover what am I actually doing with my life? Is this something that I really want to do? And kind of repainting that vision because visions change over time. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's just like I know how it's crazy, man. But it's been one of the best journeys of my life, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. How does it feel knowing that your parents are supporting you now from like, you know, like one end of the spectrum to the other? How does that make you feel?
Honestly, it's really nice. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's so nice. At the end of the day, I don't think they fully understand. Like, I don't even know how to say spirituality in Chinese. So I've kind of like given up. I'm just like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like creating good impact. Like, you know, it's good.
Yeah.
But no, it feels very nice. And I'm so grateful that they've become a lot more open.
Yeah.
They understand that, you know, times are changing, that their set of beliefs, their way of looking at the world is probably no longer up to date, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
I think like it's the biggest shift that I've seen in, you know, both of them, especially my mom, is just understanding that it's no longer about like, oh, at what age are you going to buy your house and have kids, but what is really important is that you're happy. And that's what she
Mm.
tells me every single day when I talk to her on the phone, is that she's like, if what you're doing is making you happy, then that's all that matters. And it's so funny because when I was younger, they pushed me really hard, right? To be the
Yeah.
straight A student, to do very well, all that kind of stuff. And then they kind of developed me into like a monster who's like crazy overachiever, to a point where now they're trying to tell me like, scale back, like just take a break. You don't have to be the best. Like, it's okay. It's better to be normal. You have less stress. And I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. I can't be normal. And
My mom tells me the same thing.
yeah, it's so funny because they're like, oh well, shit, we overdid it. You know? So it's really nice to have that support and to know that, you know, they're on my side, even if they don't fully understand.
Yeah, it's so funny seeing that we kind of live parallel lives, man. Because my mom
Yeah.
is always scared that I'm going to die of a heart attack at like,
Oh.
dude.
No,
Like,
but actually though, my mom too, she's so stressed about my health.
yeah, I know, right? I'm like, mom, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good, man. I try to take care of myself, right? So, yeah. Well, yeah, I do want to ask one last question before we wrap things up. There's a lot of people on my channel, a lot of pharmacists on my channel who are struggling to find their like why or something like, or they think that they know that deep down inside pharmacy is not for them. They're meant for something bigger, right?
Mhm.
Just like how you felt. What's one piece of advice that you have for them, or what's one piece of advice that you could leave them with?
Yeah, it's very simple, but it's honestly a piece of advice that has changed my own life, is
Yeah.
follow what lights you up.
Mm,
And you may think like, wait, what does that even mean? But it really means like paying attention, becoming aware to what makes you feel alive. What are the things that you're doing? What are the types of conversations that you're having now? What are the things that maybe you're reading or the content that you're consuming that when you're in the zone of, you feel so excited, you feel connected to something bigger than yourself, that you kind of have one of those like spark joy moments, right? That you just feel so different. And in identifying this feeling, do more of these types of things, right? Because when you keep on taking action, when you follow what lights you up, you will be supported with the next piece of advice, with the next sign that will guide you towards your path. A lot of times people tend to think that, okay, when I'm looking for my purpose, when I'm searching for my why, I just have to like hustle through it. And one day somebody's going to show up with like a scroll. They're going to scroll. They're going to be like, this is your life purpose. Right? And then it's like, once you got this like scroll, you're like, I got it. I know exactly what I'm meant to do. But that is not the case in life, right? Even for me now, like it's been a huge evolution and I continue to evolve. But the one thing that has really helped me is following what lights me up continuously, because that is going to change. In the beginning, talking about Instagram marketing lit me up, and then after a while it's like, no, that no longer lights me up, right? So really listening to those signs, feeling into your intuition as to what feels right, and taking that action. Because there's this quote by one of my favorite authors. Her name is Rebecca Campbell, and she says that follow what lights you up, and in doing so you will light up the world around you. Because when we are lit up, when we are so full of joy, we're so excited and so in love with what we're doing every single day, we naturally light up everyone else around us and inspire other people to do the same. So that is my greatest piece of advice, and honestly one that has changed my life.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. And how about time for shameless plugs? Where can no,
I
dude, it's
love
so funny.
it.
On my YouTube channel, I'm always just like, hey guys, shameless plug, blah 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 blah. What are some of your shameless plugs, or where can people find you? Where do you want people to follow you at?
Yes, so you can find me over at Instagram at
Yeah.
PSMella. You can also check out my website, psmella.com. I have a Facebook group as well called the Badass Lightworker Tribe. So I'm all about really cultivating this safe space for badass lightworkers, people who are here to shine their light big time and live out their purpose and be total badasses at what they do. So you can check that out at facebook.com/groups/badass-lightworker. I also have a YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I don't have 1,000 subscribers yet, so I can't customize my YouTube channel link. So it's like this like whole link of like gibberish. So I'll share that with you to share with your audience. But yeah, those are the channels that I'm most active on. I also have a podcast. It's called the Badass Lightworker Podcast, which you can access through iTunes, on Podbean, and also on my website.
Sweet. Awesome. 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 Well, anyways, Ella, I love that you made time today to just speak to my audience. I know that your story is really going to inspire a lot of people listening to this, and it's so great catching up because literally this is the second time we've ever spoken in real
Yeah.
life. So it's pretty cool to just document that, man. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Cool. Later.